Okay, so now that you've got your final 3 rows of knit done, we're gonna bind this off but not separate it from the ball. So you're gonna knit 1, knit 2, and then you're gonna pull that first stitch over the second. Okay, get this close up, sorry. First stitch, and you're gonna pull that over top of the second stitch and off the needle, just like that. And let me adjust this camera here. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to show you. Keep doing it. You're going to knit a stitch, pull the first stitch over and off, and you're going to do that all the way through to the end of the row. And don't worry, I'll teach you how to undo this when we're done here, because you'll want to put all this yarn back on the ball. There's a lot of yarn we're using. So just do this all the way to the end, off, over, up, over, off, knit, up, over, off, knit, over, whoopsie. I am having some trouble with this yarn. Okay, up, over, off. This is just your basic bind off. There's a lot of ways to bind off. This one's fairly useful. A little tight generally. You can see that. But oops, the lighting was off. Okay, you can see it's a little tight, but it's it works. That's what matters, right? There's better bind-offs, and they're good for certain projects and stuff. But this is just a swatch, and we have our border, so it doesn't really matter that it's tight. I should be doing it looser, but I can only do so much, you know? I'm just not very good at loosening my gauge, my tension. My tension's very tight. As most of yours will be, with the newness of it all. You'll kind of over pull things, pull a little too tight, make things a little too taut. But there are so many ways to fix it, so it's not a big deal. And I just keep having trouble with this. Alright, come here, you. Alright. Almost there. Now generally I would just leave this on my circular, but some of you might be working with double points and or straights or whatever, and that would mean that you don't have the cord, which is I would just slide it onto the cord and not bind it off. So I'm showing you how to bind it off so that you can do the next step without having to let the stitches go. You could also just thread a another string through all the stitches and then pull it off the needles and let it set like that. But you always want to take the opportunity to learn to practice any technique really when you're new. So we might as well just bind it off. Plus then you get to learn how to undo that. In case you decide you dislike a bind off after you've finished a project, you can undo it and rework it in a different type. Okay, Now typically at the end here we would cut this off, but we're not going to do that. So you do this last stitch and you pull it over and off, and then you're going to pull your working yarn through a lot so that you can set the needles down. Typically you would cut and then pull so that you make a knot, but we're not going to do that because we're going to reuse this yarn in our project. So now what you're going to need to do is pin this down so that it's square. So we're going to do that next. I'm going to go get the materials.